What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to an emergency podcast edition of Green with Envy here on the 617 podcast, proudly brought to you by Crowworthy. Took a week off, but your boys are back. As always, this is your man Will Weir here checking in with you. How you doing? How you living? Joining me as he does each and every time, and especially when we have emergency news that breaks as we chilling on the couch, it's my best friend, co-host, and coach of the podcast, the one and only Greg Manakis. What up, man?
What's good, man? Yeah, I was like really close to falling asleep, and then I checked Twitter and I saw Marcus Smart sign the extension. I was like, oh, we gotta do it, man. Marcus is back.
Yeah, man, not gonna lie, I was on the couch watching Bachelor in Paradise, trying to put in my off-season work. I take up so much of the TV time in the house watching, sports, specifically, obviously the Celtics. So putting in my due time, but sometimes when that bat signal goes up, or in this case, the Marcus Smart Cobra signal goes up, you got to hop on here and do a podcast. So let's set it up real quick. I'm sure you all know what we're talking about. If you're buzzing around in the Twitter sphere, you've seen it go down. This has been rumored for a week or two here, so not entirely surprising, but definitely something that we wanted to hop on here and give you our takes on. So Marcus Smart, 4-year extension, $77 million. That number is ascending according to Bobby Marks. So it looks like it's going to start next season at about 17 million. And then by the last year, that contract will be just over 21 million for Marcus Smart. So Marcus Smart right now signed up for 5 more years, including the last year of his current deal here with the Celtics. Greg, we've gone back and forth, kicking it around. We asked Dana Barros the last time y'all heard from us, would you re-sign, trade Marcus Smart? His answer on the fast break, re-sign. You can always trade later. We'll get to what we think might happen. But for now, just initial thoughts, 4 years, 77 mil, Marcus Smart staying with the Celtics.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. I think the Celtics, after the talent bleed that's been going on over the last few years, just our inability to hang on to our assets. I mean, it continued this year with Evan Fournier. We needed to make sure that we locked in Marcus Smart, who's, regardless what you think of him, he is a good trade asset, and I think he does have a lot of value around the league. So I'm excited that he's back. I think that Marcus, the guy I've always compared him to, and I've kind of been watching the career trajectory of Marcus, is Kyle Lowry. And if you look at Kyle Lowry's first 7 years, first 8 years in the league, they are very, very similar numbers to what Marcus Smart has. And I think they both have that bulldog, pit bull mentality. And, Kyle Lowry, people look at him as a pretty good shooter. His numbers, his first 7 years are pretty abysmal, man. He didn't get above 30% from 3 until I think year 6 or something like that. So I think Marcus has already kind of surpassed what Lowry did early on in his career. And obviously Lowry's numbers took a big jump when he got a much bigger role with the Raptors. But I think Marcus getting this shot to be the starting point guard with under Ime Udoka is going to be huge for him in his development.
Yeah, and that was something Shams reported as well, is that it looks like Marcus is going to be the starting point guard for the Celtics year, which I think it was kind of leading in that direction anyways. And, we'll talk about the depth chart here in a minute. I think there's a couple different combo guards. And so it's really going to be not necessarily is there one starting point guard, but there'll be multiple players on the floor seemingly at all times. I think for the Celtics can handle the ball in some capacity. But it's funny. One of the first things that I thought of when I saw this extension was, number one, the number's fine. I'm fine with it. I think for me, if you project, you've mentioned before the Kyle Lowry comparison, and I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he gets there. Kyle Lowry bounced around the league with several teams. It was right before, I believe it was with the Rockets for right before he got to the Raptors, where he started to kind of find his footing a little bit. And then certainly with the Raptors, he took off. And you talk about his 3-point shot, kind of a, Jason Kidd almost like trajectory where, he was a liability from that area. And then towards the end of his career and where Kyle Lowry's at now, he's certainly a threat. So, I think for the price that the Celtics are looking at, high-end, role player potentially could have, another small level to jump. Marcus Smart's in that range. Look at a guy like Julius Randle, same draft class, 1 pick behind. Never had been an all-star before last year, makes the all-star team, makes all-NBA second team, all of a sudden added a whole bunch of new dynamic aspects to his game that, you and I had talked about before, had some stock on Randall Island. Didn't see quite coming what he put up last year. Not saying Marcus is going to do that. Exactly. Not saying Marcus is going to do that, but just saying like him continuing to get better is not out of the realm of possibility. He's really not that old. He's been in the league 7 years, so it feels longer, but he's still in his mid-20s. So it's still entirely possible he gets better. So at this number, I feel pretty good about it. They seemingly gave Marcus a bone and his team a bone here by doing the ascending contract versus, having that descending contract. But the funny part about it, which we might as well get into now because you kind of touched on it, is one of the first things that went into my mind was, number one, all right, Marcus is back, kind of where I thought this offseason was heading. Number two, God damn it, I'm going to end up putting Marcus Smart in so many fake trades. I'm just going to continue to do it. It's a tradable contract. He's valuable. And it's not, I hope Celtics fans know that it's not because like people that are talking about him in trades don't like Marcus Smart most of the time. It's because he is valuable and because he's an asset and he fits in that mid-range. And that's part of, you and I talked about Evan Fournier a couple of weeks ago when it was, a little disappointing because when you talk about that roster flexibility, that involves having cap flexibility and cap equity that you could trade. And we don't really have that right now outside of Marcus Smart. We don't know what's going to happen with Rob Williams, if he'll be extended. Al Horford's here this year, and then he's only about half of his salary is guaranteed next year. And then it's mostly Jalen and Tatum, and then, Nesmith, Pritchard, a few of the rookies. And they're just not making a lot of money outside of Brown, Tatum, and Smart. You're not trading those top two. So happy to have Marcus back, but the trades are going to keep coming. It's just the way it goes. It's part of the business.
Yeah, I think those trade rumors will definitely keep coming, as you said. But I'm excited just to see what the Celtics can build around the Jays and Marcus Smart. I think that people have long been rumoring Marcus Smart into trades because of that contract and because he is a good player. But how about we start believing in Marcus for a year as the starting point guard? Just see what the hell happens. We're probably not going to win the championship anyway. You want to see if we want to increase his trade value, if you really want to trade Marcus Smart, the best way to increase his trade value is to give him his best opportunity to shine in a leading role. And he has not had that opportunity yet. He's always just been a role player at, guarding the best guy on the other team. And that does a lot for a team, but that doesn't get you, a great piece back. But if Marcus Smart turns into Kyle Lowry, I mean, you just saw what happened to Kyle Lowry this offseason at age 35 or 36 or whatever he is. If Marcus just makes a jump, whether that's shooting 37% from three rather than 33%, I think Marcus's career high shooting from three is 36%. And that was in 2018. Right. We definitely need Marcus to be shooting above at least 35%. But if he gets to, 37, 38%, he could have some real trade value out there in the market. And if he stays healthy, Marcus Smart's defense, which a lot of people were saying didn't look the same this year. I mean, yeah, it shouldn't have. The guy tore his calf. He tore his calf. People forget that. Marcus was not fully healthy this year. So if Marcus Smart gets back to peak Marcus defense, gets to 37% and shows that he can run an offense, one, maybe that's not a guy you want to trade. And two, maybe that's a guy that a lot of teams out there are clamoring for, because I think Celtics fans right now are kind of at that point where you either love or hate Marcus, and you might overvalue him or you undervalue him, but I don't think anyone is properly valuing what Marcus Smart is. So I'm excited to see him in this point guard role so that he could potentially tell everybody, like, okay, you hated me. Well, I wasn't as bad as you thought I was. You loved me. Maybe I wasn't as good as you thought I was, but I am this defined value. And I don't know that Marcus Smart has been a defined value yet.
Yeah, I feel like Marcus Smart has to be the number one trending topic over the last, 2 to 3 years in niche Celtic podcasting. Like it feels like, hey, I'm kind of running out of some topics today. Let's go back. Let's just go back to the well. There's got to be something about Marcus Smart that we can debate, whether that's should we trade him, should we extend him, his 3-point shooting, is his defense slipping as you alluded to. And I think that calf issue is massive. I really do. And when you factor in just the wonkiness of this season. I did use the word wonky. The just like as weird as this season was, there's no practice. There's not the same flow to it. There was no crowd. So even when you're dealing with that calf issue, a lot of the times until the end of the year, when once the Jaylen Brown injury happened, the season kind of went off the rails as it was kind of leaning that way. But like without like that crowd energy, you think of that adrenaline that sometimes helps you play through an injury like that when it's sparking up or when it's not feeling 100%. Like that wasn't there. And Marcus is certainly a guy that, and I'm inferring, but I don't think it's a crazy inference, that he feeds off that energy from the crowd, and that
sure.
might, and that plays into, his play from this last year, which I don't think was bad, but if you wanted to nitpick and say that maybe you thought there was something there, yeah, it's probably the tear in the calf. Like, that's fully reasonable. But let's look at this from another angle here for a minute, and let's talk about let's forget about trades for a moment here, and let's talk about what this team looks like right now. And you and I took a much deserved vacation. We've been plugging away pretty hard over the last year or so. You know, COVID takes a toll. Had a chance to connect with some of the homies. Got a chance to go to Lake Tahoe. Take a little step back, but we didn't have a chance to really talk about Dennis Schroeder. Schroeder. Talk about how you pronounce his last name and how he fits into this Celtics rotation, specifically from the guard front, because I think that's something that will take up a lot of our time throughout the season. The Smart and Schroeder fit. Do they go together on the court? Are they better off being staggered? You know, as you look at what this backcourt is, and starting with Smart and Schroeder and where you see starting, you know, who's on the bench, or maybe they're together. What are your initial thoughts before we have a chance to see what they actually look like on the floor together?
Well, I think, to kind of piggyback off my last point, if you're going to re-sign Marcus, in my opinion, you have to give him the keys to the offense. And Schroeder is not a 2. Schroeder's a score-first point guard who can facilitate and can penetrate into the defense. To me, he's more of like a classic 6-man. And I know he has played that role in the past and he didn't like it. He was clamoring for more minutes and to start. But
he almost won 6th man of the year while doing it too.
Yeah, he was a really good 6-man. And you saw what he was able to do kind of playing in a secondary creation role off of Chris Paul, right? So there is an argument to be made that, okay, he can thrive in a 3-guard lineup. And I don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure he was starting for OKC? I think they were starting a 3-guard lineup, right?
At certain points they did, but that was the year he ended up coming in either 2nd or 3rd for 6th man of the year. But he did have some spot starts, and I think later in the year they may have switched to that. I'd have to go back and check.
That was part of their closing 5 for sure. And you and I,
for sure, with Chris Paul, yeah,
it's more important who's closing the game anyway. But I think in terms of starting, I don't see the fit. Smart and Schroeder. What I see, and we've talked about this a little bit, I see Nesmith sliding in there at the 2 because I think his versatility off the ball, and he's shown he's able to be a 3-level scorer in summer league. He's shown flashes of it in the NBA. I think if you give Nesmith those minutes with the starting 5, that's going to go a long ways for his development. And then, you know, maybe Nesmith isn't in the closing 5, but if he gets consistent run as a starting 2 in the league, I think you got to try it because the kid can shoot the lights out, right? He's shooting, what is he shooting? Near 50% in summer league right now, like 44%.
Dropped down to 40, but yeah.
Okay, yeah. The first couple games he was. I mean, the guy can shoot, right? And he's a great defender. I know there was some weird stuff going on in one of our threads on Twitter the other day saying Nesmith can't defend. Aaron Nesmith can hustle, and he has the the physical makeup to be a good defender in the NBA, especially as someone who knows how to navigate screens. And I don't think that there's anybody else in the starting 5 that I foresee that could potentially navigate screens the way that he can, similar to how Brad was obsessed with playing Javonte Green against the likes of like Terrence Ross and guys who can just slither around screens as shooters off the ball. I think Nesmith is going to be really good in that lock and trail position, guarding the best shooter on the other team. So I see Marcus Smart, Aaron Nesmith in the backcourt. Obviously, we got the Jays in the wing, and then I see Al Horford or Robert Williams, depending on what they want to do with Rob's health. I don't really think it matters for either of those 2 guys. Yeah. I think when the cards are on the table, you're going to see the Jays. You'll probably see Al Horford, and then, I mean, who knows, man? Peyton Pritchard's shooting the hell out of the ball, and he just dropped 92 in a Pro-Am.
Yeah, it's the summer of Peyton Pritchard, and we're all just living in it. But, so with that, because I agree with most of your points, and I think from the Nesmith angle, I view that as the long-term, and when I say long-term, I'm viewing this season in that, in that context, that's the ideal way that it will play out. I don't know that it will start that way, but I think that's the ideal way that I envision it playing out, because I do think if he can be a true consistent floor spacer, shooting, 6 to 8 threes a game, somewhere in that 38 to just over 40% range, like that really massively changes the dynamic of what the Celtics can do. Rob and Al, like you said, it's kind of a coin flip based on health, matchup, who's going to play there. The one guy you didn't mention, who I think is kind of the one that I'm not sure where to place, is Josh Richardson. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think in my mind, I'm envisioning that he may start the season in that 2 guard position, and it'd be him and Smart in the backcourt with Nesmith, Pritchard, and Schroeder coming off the bench. But that is a little bit of a logjam, although Richardson does have the ability to obviously swing to the wing, and so does Nesmith in that same capacity, and Pritchard can play off ball. But within your breakdown of what you're seeing, how does Richardson fit into what you potentially could see a depth chart or rotation looking like?
Man, I mean, Richardson adds a lot just as a, career. I think he's around 12 a game or something like that. Richardson and Schroeder, putting them on our bench, if they're coming off the bench, those are two proven guys who can get buckets, right? We don't have Semi Ojeleye coming into the game. We don't have a rookie Aaron Nesmith. We don't have the potential of Romeo Langford. We have guys that can actually score the ball. And it's not just going to be this top heavy team of 4 or 5 guys. We're actually going to have depth on our bench. So that's where I see Richardson playing. I understand your point that he probably will get the chance to start at the 2, especially being Ime's guy from Philly. And if Richardson, shows that he can be a little bit more of a floor spacer than he has been in the past, if he can get back up to 37-38%, that makes a world of difference for sure, because he's the better defender. He's the better playmaker. But I think that actually works better coming off the bench with like a rotation. I don't know what the staggers will be, but if you can have Pritchard, Schroeder, and Richardson as your first 3 off the bench, getting different guys, so we always have a little bit of shooting on the floor. I think those 3 guys are going to play a huge, huge role. And then, whichever big doesn't start, I see it kind of being those 4, and then maybe like a Grant Williams getting spot minutes just if we need a little bit more size. But I think that the Celtics are probably going to trend small off the bench and just go for playmakers. That's something we have not had over the past few years, or guys that can just dribble, pass, and shoot. We've had a lot of guys that can just stand there and theoretically shoot, like Daniel Tice, Semi Ojeleye, Grant Williams. But these guys that we need people that can actually put the ball on the floor and be a threat. And I think that's what Dennis Schroeder can do. That's what Josh Richardson can do. And Peyton Pritchard, I want to talk about him more. I don't know if I have enough time tonight, but goddamn, he looks good.
Yeah, Peyton Pritchard looks fantastic. Dropping, was it 92, and then I think another 60 piece. 92, and then a 60 piece. And he threw in a couple assists for good. He had a triple double in the Portland Pro Am final game. It was like 60, 15, and 12 or something nuts.
And he's coming back for the Summer League Championship. What a G.
I think it's TBD if he's gonna play. I think he's definitely gonna be there. But I was surprised. I was amped to see it, and then I saw a report where it's like it's kind of unsure, and I could totally see the Celtics holding him out of that game. Just like we don't want something weird, wonky once again to happen. It's the last game of the Summer League in Vegas.
Well, real quick, it's gonna be against the Kings. He'd be going up against Davion Mitchell, who's been, getting all sorts of accolades for his defense. I actually think it would be a really good test for him to go up against Mitchell. Mitchell is just like one hell of a defender. So I want to see it. I think everybody wants to see it. It's probably smart for the Celtics to hold him out of the game. I don't know that Peyton Pritchard could have increased his trade value any more than he has in this brief time over the Summer League and the Pro-Am. So it's probably smart for them to hold him out.
Yeah, quick question. Do you know what Davion Mitchell's nickname is?
No. Oh, no, I do. Off night.
Yo, it's so fucking good. It's unbelievable. I heard that was his nickname, and I lost it. That's one of the best. I feel like we talked about this at one point, that there's not as many good nicknames in the NBA as there used to be. Off night is fantastic, and
it's for that, best I've ever heard.
Yeah, for that reason alone, Davion Mitchell needs to be first team All NBA defense or second team All NBA defense this year, so that it sticks and becomes his permanent thing. But that's a complete different way that we could take this podcast. But bringing it full circle here, so getting it back to Marcus Smart, we got the deal done, 4 years, $77 million. Looks like he'll probably start at the point guard.
Let's go.
And, as we're having this conversation, one of the things that feels, very optimistic for an offseason that didn't feel great, but at the end of the day, you can still have your nitpicks with it, and I certainly do. It's really, this team's starting to come into form a little bit. I still think there's some concern with the shooting, and that's where Nesmith and Pritchard really got to be on their shit. That's where they're really going to be called upon. But, as we're talking about this, we feel like right now, I think as we're talking, I feel 9 solid. 9 solid players.
I wish I was a 9 solid.
That I've Okay, that caught me off guard. I feel like I had a place I was going, and you took me to a different place that only
No, no,
Danielle needs to be dreaming about that.
but I know what you're saying. Like if we had brought this solid 9 into last season, then the Celtics would have been in great shape, and I would have been like, damn, the Celtics are going to be contenders this year. I don't know if I'm able to come back from that. But this year, because of how much the league has changed and how many teams have just gotten top end talent, the fact that we've just made these moves on the margin, that's why it doesn't feel great. But we are a far better team than we were last year, in my opinion, coming into the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a little bit of concern on the front line, where, as you talked about before, it's really weird. It's thin but deep almost at the same time when you factor in Grant Williams, Bruno Fernando, and Enes Kanter. But we know Enes Kanter's limitations.
Mm-hmm.
Bruno's kind of a wild card. Grant, I think he should get another
Forgot about
opportunity to
Enes.
prove himself, right? I mean, Enes is a nice wild card to have in your back pocket. Like, I think about him as like he's a perfect regular season guy in the sense of, I think of 2 games specifically, and I think of the matinee against the Hornets where their biggest guys are Zeller and Biyombo, and we're just running out there and we're flat. Go throw Enes Kanter out in that game. Enes Kanter will go get you in 20 minutes. He'll go get you 18 and 10 rebounds. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
He'll give you something different to throw out there, or you're playing the Kings for a night, who the Celtics will be playing in the Summer League Championship, and Rashawn Holmes is dominating. Now, he's not going to, match up with Rashawn, but he's another big-ass body to go ahead and throw out there, throw in his way. You know what I mean? Like he's going to be a guy that will have value in the regular season. Postseason, as we've seen, probably not. But there's going to be a couple nights where you throw him out there as that knuckleball, and he's gonna do something for you.
Oh, for sure. I like Kanter. I'm glad that we brought him back. I was really high on the Tristan Thompson signing when we signed him, not realizing he was completely washed up. Kanter was better than Thompson was. Kanter's time in Boston was more productive than Thompson's was. So I'm excited to have him back. He's a guy that you can put out there when the shooting, which we don't have a lot of right now, isn't there. Throw the ball in a Kanter in the post. He's going to get you a bucket, or he's going to create a good opportunity at the rim, or he's going to get an offensive rebound. So Enes Kanter, maybe not part of that solid 9, but he's solid 10.
Yeah, he's probably olive turkey. If shout out to our guy Tommy if it's anything like Aaron Bates. All right, let's wrap this the hell up. We're going nuts here. I got to get back to Bachelor in Paradise, find out where the solid 9s are on the beach there. So, Greg, go ahead and give us any final thoughts on. I don't even know where we're at anymore. Just give us some final thoughts and send us on out.
Marcus Smart back 4 years, $77 million. In the words of Tom Brady, let's fucking go.
Peace, y'all.
Peace.